I know you heard me on the radio, flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio, flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Fam, Fins Nation, Dolphins everywhere. What's up, man? Just wanted to do a day after kind of Monday morning quarterback kind of analysis, a recap of the game, just my general thoughts, sentiments, what's going on about it. We are getting a lot of buzz as we were last week. The Miami Dolphins are one of 3 undefeated teams in the league right now, the other 2 being the Eagles and the Giants. The Giants play tonight. We'll see what happens with them. Philly is looking pretty good. But, hey, in the AFC, the Miami Dolphins are the only team that is undefeated 3-0. Now, we already know, and McDaniel said this in his press conference, we already know that 3 wins does not get you where you want to go at the end of the year. We need quite a few more than 3 wins. But you really could not, I mean, you know this, it's obvious, you could not have started the season any better than we just did with these 3 wins, because the front of the schedule, especially these first 4 games, are tough games. And you thought going in that, hey, if we could come out at like 500 at 2-2, we'd be happy, because the middle of our schedule appears to get softer. Now, we never really know. Every NFL season's different. Every NFL season is different, and every year certain teams that you thought were going to be good are not as good, and certain teams that you thought were going to be bad are much better. So we can't categorically define the middle of our schedule right now as easy or everything being winnable. But what we can say is that we had a great start, as good a start as you could ever want to have against the onslaught of teams we opened the season with. And we have another one. It's coming up Thursday in Cincinnati. Since I'm going to be en route down to North Florida for a wedding, I'm actually going to be at the game in Cincinnati. So I'll do some live stuff from there, some live video, some reaction from Cincinnati. It's a great opportunity, and I'm starting to see how Mike McDaniel words things. He defines challenges as opportunities, and his philosophy is starting to come through. And he says, look, it's a short week, McDaniel said, but it's another opportunity. Every team goes through it. We can either sit there and complain about it being a short week, or we could get to work. He said they condensed about 2 or 3 days worth of work into one day just so they could stay on schedule preparing for Cincinnati this Thursday night. So it's gonna be a hell of a game, I think. Cincinnati coming off a win, their first win this time against the New York Jets on Sunday. Had a decent showing, but the Jets missed a few opportunities. You could say the same about the Bills. You could say the same about a lot of teams every week. But they're going to be hungry. They're going to be playing in front of a home crowd. They want to get back on track even more. I think they got some confidence from winning yesterday. And Miami, obviously, is the road team. We got to travel up to Cincinnati and try to, give it our best, despite kind of the short week and the travel. But we, I think, are going to be up to the task, and it's going to be interesting to see what we do against Cincy. And then it's going to be interesting to see what we do the rest of the year, because you got to look at this. Not only have we placed ourselves in good position out of the gate going 3-0, we've also defeated 3 AFC teams, 2 of them being AFC East teams. Now, I don't know, the jury's going to be out on the New England, but I never count New England out until at least half the season's gone by. Now, they did just sustain a significant injury to Mac Jones. He's going to be out for several weeks, it looks like, with an ankle injury that appears to be notable, like not just a minor tweak. It appears that some tendons and things could be damaged. He's going to get a second opinion, but Mac Jones might be out for this foreseeable future. And I do think, sorry, my hair is just, it's hard in the mirror, you kind of reverse, but I do think him being out is gonna hurt New England, and they already weren't playing great as it is. So we definitely have, we're in good position in the division. But where I was going with that was our 3 wins are also against AFC teams, and at least 2 of those wins, one being a division, well, 2 being division games. So it sets us up nicely for tiebreakers when we beat the Bills and the Patriots. So we're 2-0 in the division. That's huge to get off to that start in the division. And then conference-wise, if the Patriots are contenders, you have 3 wins against AFC contenders for playoff spots. If the Patriots are not contenders, then you have 2 wins against contenders for playoff spots in the AFC, plus the Patriots win, which is a conference victory, and more importantly, a division victory. This puts us in good position, but we have to keep going. We have to keep pressing on. We have to keep improving. We have to keep cleaning up mistakes, and hopefully we will get there. Now, speaking of mistakes and speaking of things like that, there's a lot of talk around the NFL today, and I find it kind of silly. Not just from Bills fans, and some Bills fans have been gracious and been like, look, we'll take the L. I mean, you beat us. It's the first time you beat us in a long time. It is what it is. But other commentators, whether part of Bills Mafia, part of Bills Nation, or a lot of them outside of it altogether, not part of in either team's fan base, want to hone in so much on, oh, it was hot. The on-the-field conditions were one in a million. The guys were falling out. We had all these injuries on the Bills. The Bills missed opportunities. The Bills gave the game away. Blah, 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 blah. Is anybody saying that in December when we have to play against New England or we have to play against Buffalo when it's freezing cold or snowing, that's an excuse and it was too cold for us to play, so that's why we couldn't win? No. That's part of home field advantage. That's why I love football. It's one of the reasons I love football. It's one of the reasons I'm kind of not the biggest fan of indoor football stadiums, because I think every team is going to have their advantages and disadvantages based on where they play. And Miami having games in September, the way that stadium is designed, where the sun's setting and giving shade to the home team and sun's beating down on the visiting team, that's part of the home field advantage. And then later in December, we're going to have to play Buffalo, and it's going to be freezing cold, and they're going to have the home field advantage. And that's just how it works. So I don't want to hear any complaining about that. The other thing I definitely don't think is valid is that, they gave the game away and, they had so many guys out. Let's face it, Xavier Howard was in and out of the game with cramps too. You barely noticed that, but he was in and out of the game with cramps. We don't have Byron Jones. He's been out. So our secondary was depleted too against one of the better passing and one of the better offenses in general in the National Football League. Landon Roberts got banged up, got tweaked. He was out for a bit. We didn't have our starting nose tackle, who's an integral part of this team. So how can you sit here and say, oh, we were depleted and that's why we lost? So were we. And speaking of the secondary, speaking of X was going against Diggs, man. And they had words back and forth, and they were jawing, and they have their little rivalry. And I've watched Diggs run over everybody and just dominate the first 2 weeks of the season. There were 2 particular plays that kind of pop out when you're watching the film and when you're watching highlights, where X visibly made a difference in coverage on a play. One was later in the first half, second quarter. Buffalo was marching, they were driving, and you know how hard it was to stop them. But it was 3rd and 10. We put some good pressure on Allen. Allen launched the ball up, though. It was close to within Diggs' grasp. It was right near his hands. But X flew in and knocked the ball down and disrupted that pass. And then obviously, probably the biggest one was very late in the game on 4th, and I believe it was 4th and 3 or 4th, or no, not 4th, on 2nd down and goal. It could have been 3rd down and goal. Now I forget. When Allen went to drop back, find Diggs in the back of the end zone, but X jumped in front of it and nearly picked it off. That was another visibly, jump out of the film type performance by X. But all day you were wondering, Allen's scrambling around, he's buying himself time. But why isn't he going down the field? Well, the reason is our secondary. And part of the reason is Xavier Howard. For all the talk about he's really just a turnover machine, he's really just a playmaker, but he's not the shutdown cover guy. And I've been one of those people a little bit. Byron Jones, maybe more of the shutdown corner. who isn't as, doesn't have the hands to create as many turnovers and game-changing plays in that regard. But X out here with one of the best receivers and one of the best passing offenses in the league, making his mark. And the young kids that stepped up too. And it kind of goes into playing complementary football. You are now seeing a Miami Dolphins team where, yes, last week you needed Tua to throw 6 touchdowns. You needed Tua to come back in the fourth quarter. And you needed him to have a career day and tie records set by Greasy and Marino for the Dolphins. This week, you just needed Tua to come through in certain situations, and this week you just needed the defense to come through in certain situations. And let's face it, you're not going to stop the Buffalo Bills every time down the field. But holding them to the totals we held them to and stopping them where we stopped them, there's a lot to be said for that. And how about Melvin Ingram? First of all, the fumble recovery, that's the second time he's recovered a fumble. He just picked it up. But I noticed on the last play of the game, the play where they wound up running out of time, if you pay attention to that play, Ingram is in there early on Allen. He's the one who he kind of stunts. He sees the way the line is. He goes around. He gets in there, applies the pressure, which pushes Allen out of the pocket. I wish he could have brought him down, but who knows? That probably would have been worse for us. Allen probably would have been better off taking the sack and just spiking it and either trying to get another play towards the sideline or trying to throw a bomb or just kicking a really long field goal or something. If he'd taken the sack, it would have saved precious seconds. But he escapes the pocket, and what's crazy is he gets the ball out. And when he gets the ball out, Ingram actually runs all the way to the other side and helps make the tackle and helps keep the guy in bounds, which really ultimately leads to the victory. So he's been all over the field. I think Wilkins was jawing at Allen a lot of the game. I really think Wilkins was jawing at him because even when he ripped his helmet off, I think it was the culmination. If you watch, again, the film, you see them kind of going back and forth a lot throughout the game, which, hey, that's part of the game. That's part of our personality. I get it. Speaking of defense, though, the one spot I will say that I noticed again, and he made some good plays too, but Phillips, man. Phillips is still struggling to be an every down linebacker. He missed a lot of tackles that he should have had, and he missed contain sometimes on Josh Allen. So that's still a work in progress. I like the kid. He's very promising, specifically as a pass rusher. I'd love to see him continue to develop as a defender. I do think he got his hand up once and batted a pass, which was important. He's done some good things. It's not like he's a complete and utter liability out there, but Phillips, I think, is one position. The linebacking core in general, I think, needs some help here and there, but I think Phillips is still struggling a little. We saw that. Then again, it's also the Buffalo Bills. They're also playing very good. Now, did they play their best game, the Bills? No, they didn't, but the Dolphins have something to do with that. They're rattling him, and I know early in the game, people were very critical of Josh Boyer, because they said, hey, stop blitzing. Every time you blitz Allen, he finds the open man. And that was evident on several plays. Several plays, including their first touchdown. It was evident that the blitz, Allen easily found the open man and got the touchdown and burned us. But if you notice, look, Boyer's not going to go way outside of what our team's identity is on defense. And if you pay attention, we hit Allen quite a bit. He got out of a lot of it. We did sack him a couple times, but it did rattle him, I think. He hasn't been used to getting hit like that. And I'm not suggesting that Josh Allen is an easily rattled quarterback. He's not a Tom Brady where if you hit him nonstop, he just gets completely out of his element. But any human being and any quarterback is going to get at least a little bit out of their element if you keep applying the pressure we were applying. And I think it had a lot to do with us winning that game at the end. But back to speaking about complementary football. It's not just when one unit does well, the other unit complements it and does well. Sometimes it's when one unit struggles, the other unit picks them up, and vice versa. And you notice that we were able to, on offense, we had some struggles on offense. There were drives where we went 3 and out. There were drives where we, came close but couldn't convert on third down and had to kick the ball away. And against a Buffalo offense as potent as it is, the fact that the defense held them to 2 field goal attempts in the second half instead of touchdowns, and Buffalo missed one of those attempts, is the difference in the game. Them stopping Buffalo the way that they did, even though they were bending towards the end, They ultimately stopped them at the end of the game despite a terrible special teams play. But if you notice, the free kick was all the way down. It put Buffalo in a deeper hole than they would have liked to be in with 1:20 left. We had other great punts and special teams play where we pinned them at the 2. Now, did they go all the way back down the field from the 2? Yes. But that forced them to eat up a whole drive just to do that. And then when it was time for our offense to step up, they did. When Buffalo scores the second touchdown, and it's 14-7, and I think a lot of the collective football viewing world is assuming, okay, this is what we thought was going to happen. Here we are. The Bills are going to pull away. They just can't be stopped on offense. Miami got a touchdown. It was early in the game, part of their pre-planning, blah, blah, blah. Are they going to catch up? Well, no. Tua leads a drive all the way down the field right after that. Culminates in finding Craycraft in the end zone with an absolute laser throw. An absolute laser of a throw that ties the game up. And then I had a couple buddies actually text me like, oh, we got a game in Miami. Yeah, we got a game. This is not just Buffalo slaughtering another opponent. And it's not like they slaughtered scrubs. They slaughtered the Rams on the road. So this is not a team that should in any way, that they just had cupcakes on the schedule and all of a sudden Miami, was the first decent adversary. This team was pummeling people. And Tennessee finally redeemed themselves against Vegas. They pummeled them too, to the point that Tennessee was playing backups later in the game. So this was no slouch of a team, but Tua was able to drive them down and get us tied. And then later in the game, when we needed it most, 3rd and 22, and I know this is the pass heard around the world, everybody's talking about it, well, they should. 3rd and 22, after some shooting ourselves in the foot, some penalties, some other nonsense, 3rd and 22, Tua drops back. The pocket was clean, that's complimentary football, but Tua drops back, finds Waddle cutting between the safeties, and drops an absolute teardrop perfection of a pass right into Waddle's breadbasket in stride. He's all the way down there. We wind up getting a score. That's the go-ahead score, and that's the first time the Bills have trailed the entire season, which is a crazy stat in and of itself. But when Tua was needed, when he needed to make not just a play, but a major, huge, game-changing, downfield play, he did it. When Waddle needed to make a huge, game-changing chunk down-the-field play, Waddle did it. These are the type of players we have on the team right now, and it's really starting to become evident. When we talked about Tua balling out, yes, some of it is what happened last week, where his stats are just through the roof insane, and he's putting up the best stats in the league. But other games, it just comes down to, do you have that killer instinct? Do you have the ability late in the game to take the reins on your own shoulders, put the team on your shoulders, make a play under pressure, in stride, in a situation that's less than stellar, being 3rd and 22? And he's shown now in more than one game that he can do that. If he continues to do that, he's going to have an excellent season, and you're going to see the narrative around him change drastically, even though it already has to a large extent. He is well on his way to really becoming one of the upper-tier quarterbacks in the league, if he's not already. And it's a beautiful thing to see as a Miami Dolphins fan. And I told you guys this from the beginning when I was critical of the young man, that every Dolphins fan wants Tua to be great, because then it means the team's great. And anybody who currently is not happy about that or is trying to be a naysayer, I question them. Because everybody who's a Dolphins fan is happy with this young man's performance so far. It's been great. And speaking of him, this whole injury thing, you see another thing that's happening. The NFLPA is going to launch an investigation into the concussion protocol, because we all thought it. Look, I thought it. You probably thought it. Everybody watching thought it. McDaniel said he thought it. We all thought he had hit his head too hard on the turf and that he had stumbled and looked woozy because his head got hit. We assumed he had a concussion. I thought he was out for the game. And even just a few plays looking at Bridgewater, I don't think we were going to win that game without Tua. I'm pretty positive we weren't, quite frankly. So when he came back out, I thought he had just gone through the concussion protocol successfully, which apparently he did. But he passed it with flying colors, apparently, because it wasn't his head that was bothering him in the first place. He said that his back was bent back a little bit too much on the quarterback sneak a couple plays earlier. I recall that he seemed hurt on that play. And if you go back and watch the film, when he does that quarterback sneak and he's in that pile, I actually think he lays down for a while. He's laying down a little longer than you would think he should be laying down. Then he gets up and he's a little bit limpy. And then he kneels in the huddle and he plays. But I did see where his back got injured earlier in the game. I did see that. He's saying his back was loose. When he got back up after that, he stumbled because it was his lower back that was bothering him. So when he got into the locker room, he said, no, it's my lower back. They went over the lower back. They still went through the concussion protocol, which he passed because his head was never an issue, apparently. That's just what we all assumed, and he's fine. But nonetheless, the NFLPA is going to launch an investigation just to be sure that everything was on the up and up, everything was done properly and, per protocol, which McDaniel said he welcomes. As far as he understands, it was all done properly. It was just a mistake. It was his back. It wasn't his head. And he welcomes the investigation because he obviously cares a lot about player safety. So let's hope that all goes fine. And then I kind of want to just end on this note. I mean, just kind of with this whole recap is, we didn't even have to use Hill to that crazy extent. We didn't really use Gesicki. You can tell Gesicki, we already know that story. But we didn't have to use even all of our weapons. We just had to use the right weapons at the right time to make the right play to win. And that's what winning teams do. And if the culture's changing to that place where every unit, whether it's defense, offense, or special teams, understands that they have a role to play, understands that they can be part of the solution, and we find ways to win games, then watch out for the Miami Dolphins this year. Watch out for the Miami Dolphins this year, because it's going to be something to see, and watch out for them in years to come, too. But I got to hand it to Chris Grier. And we can wait till the end of the season to really start to give accolades, clap our hands, because we don't know how everything's going to go. But at this juncture, this guy has built a team. This is a roster he's assembled, largely. And it's a formidable roster. And it's a formidable team. And in the several years since he's been given complete control, you can see an ascension. And perhaps, just perhaps, and Big O said this a long time, and I didn't want to listen, but then he did kind of hint, like sometimes I know things, he said. Perhaps Grier was part of the reason that they wanted the coaching change, and perhaps getting McDaniel in there while retaining Boyer was what this team needed. I don't know. I'm still not a fan of Stephen Ross, and I'm kind of thinking the team's playing good. He's not there, like, why ruin a good thing? But I know he'll be back at some point. But you got to give props to Chris Grier as well. You got to give props all around. Mike McDaniel just seems like he's a really hard worker. He knows how to call plays. Again, I wasn't a huge fan of what he did at the end there in his own end zone, but I understand his rationale. He explained it very well. He wanted to run the ball. He thought we had moved it pretty effectively, a couple yards at least here and there. Once you don't get anything on first down, though, you just don't want to, the way it looked, you don't want to go down for a safety. But an incomplete pass, he said himself, on third down is almost worse than getting a safety. It's next to getting a safety, it's the second worst thing that could happen. We wound up with the safety anyway, because you're not running time off the clock, and you didn't move the ball at all, and you're still back way up into your own end zone. If I were him, I would have tried to throw on first down. The way their secondary was banged up, the way Tua was in big moments, the way our receivers are, with two of the best in the game on the same team, plus the other guys who are very good too, in Sherfield and Craycraft and, Smythe and Gesicki. And our running backs, even Edmonds can catch out of the backfield, and even Ingold. I thought, why not throw on first down? Because if you get the first down, the game's over. And if you gave yourself some breathing room, we could try running again. And if you don't succeed, you could always run it on second down and just do what you were going to do anyway. Also, I understand, though, the clock would have stopped with an incomplete on first down. So it's a tough situation, and it's really the first sequence where I didn't love what I saw from his play calling. But then again, we won the game. His rationale is not bad. It wasn't like he was way outside the box and way off. It's what most people would do. And his play calling has been great other than that, so I really can't complain about it. But it's a great victory Monday. I hope it never ends, but it's gonna. We're gonna get a loss at some point, and it's gonna suck. But for now, it's great to celebrate yet another Miami Dolphins win. We are 3-0. Things are looking good. The team is coalescing around each other. They're playing well. It's great to see the quarterback perform, the way he should in really big spots and really make the most of it. And it's just a beautiful thing to see the complementary football this team is playing. I don't want to hear any excuses about the dehydration or the cramps or the heat on the field or being banged up. Both teams had injuries. Both teams battled through them. It's hot in Florida. It is what it is. It's going to be cold in Buffalo. That is what it is. Guys, make sure on Wednesday at 7 p.m. you tune in to the live show, LG, Shake, and the Panel. Now, this week I'm traveling, so I may be kind of on the phone live. We're going to see if we could do the show this week. But if we can't, whether we can or we can't, most Wednesdays, and I'll make an announcement as to whether this Wednesday is going to happen. But Wednesdays at 7 is LG, Shake, and the Panel. And we have people from Fury Fam come on, talk Dolphins. It's always a blast. We always get a lot of good points across. We always have a lot of good dialogue. Make sure you tune into that. If you guys enjoyed this content, if you like the Dolphins, if you like football content in general, take a second, look right below this screen, and hit that subscribe button. Just hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't yet. Hit the like button. The super thanks, that's a huge help. If you guys want to throw any love to the channel, smash the super thanks button. Send me some love. It's greatly appreciated. It keeps the channel going. It keeps me going. It lets me invest in nice microphones, lights, and all that. I don't even have a light when I started this channel, but these donations help me to kind of finance that kind of stuff. So, guys, in the meantime, I will either see you Wednesday live or I will see you Thursday from Cincinnati. Fins up, Fury Fam all day. Let's go.
I know you heard me on the radio flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day.